The great palace of Zelaria shone like a mountain of crystal under the twin suns. Its silver towers stretched into the sky, and its walls reflected the light of the stars. The Valari Empire was the pride of the galaxy, rich, powerful, and proud. And in its heart lived Princess Erilyn Velar, daughter of the Emperor, heir to the throne, and one of the most admired yet feared women in the known universe. Erilyn was known for her beauty and her arrogance. Her long violet hair shimmered with energy fields that moved with her mood. Her eyes, golden and cold, looked down on almost everyone. She had been raised to believe the Valari were perfect beings, stronger, smarter, and more advanced than all others. Especially the humans. Humans were new to the galaxy. They were seen as primitive, emotional, and fragile. The Valari only tolerated them because Earth's growing power and technology had caught the Emperor's interest. To keep peace, the Emperor invited a small group of human guards to serve inside the royal palace. It was a gesture of trust, but not everyone was pleased. When Princess Erilyn first heard about it, she laughed. "Humans in our palace? Will they guard us or slow us down with their clumsy hands?" she said to her attendant. Her words echoed through the crystal halls. The next day, the human guards arrived. They stood in the main hall, 5 men and 2 women wearing gray armor that looked plain compared to the shining uniforms of the Valari. They stood straight, silent, respectful. Among them was Elias Rowe, the youngest and quietest of the group. Elias was not tall or loud like the others. He had brown hair that looked messy and gentle blue eyes that seemed to hold calm even in the center of the storm. He didn't speak unless spoken to. While the other humans looked around in wonder at the alien palace, Elias just bowed his head and stood still. Erilyn walked past them with slow, graceful steps. Her gown floated around her like mist. The guards lowered their heads, but she stopped in front of Elias and stared at him. "You," she said. "What is your name, human?" "Elias Rowe, Your Highness," he answered softly. Something about his calm voice annoyed her. It was too steady, too peaceful, as if he wasn't nervous to stand before royalty. "You will serve near my wing," she said coldly. "But remember your place. You are here to obey, not to speak." "Yes, Your Highness." And just like that, their strange story began. Elias started his duties the next morning. His task was simple: guard the entrance of the princess's chambers and ensure her safety during her movements through the palace. Most days, Erilyn barely noticed him. She spent her time in meetings, art halls, or with the council, always surrounded by luxury. But sometimes when she passed by him, she would glance sideways, curious why this human never looked her in the eyes unless ordered. She began testing him. "Human," she said one morning. "If a thief came to steal from my chamber, would you throw yourself in front of him?" "Yes, Your Highness." "Even if it cost your life?" "Yes, Your Highness," she smiled coldly. How very obedient. Like a machine, Elias didn't answer. He simply bowed. The next day, she gave him another test. She dropped a heavy gold pendant onto the floor during her walk and turned to see what he would do. He quietly picked it up and handed it to her without a word. "You didn't even look at it," she said. "Most would at least admire it." "It is yours, not mine," he said softly. "It belongs where it came from." Her chest tightened strangely at his words, though she didn't understand why. No one ever spoke to her so simply, without flattery, without fear. As days passed, she noticed more about him. Elias never complained, even when standing still for hours. He always cleaned his post before leaving, though no one asked him to. Once she overheard 2 Valari guards whispering insults about humans, calling them mud-born creatures. Elias heard it too, but he said nothing. He just looked away, calm and quiet. That night, while she dined with her advisors, she asked suddenly, "Why do humans not answer when insulted?" One advisor laughed. "Because they know they are lesser, Princess." But something inside her disagreed. Elias's silence didn't look like weakness. It looked like control. A week later, an incident occurred that changed everything. Princess Erilyn was traveling through the sky docks to inspect her father's fleet. The hangar was filled with engineers and ships humming with energy. But when one of the crystal reactors overloaded, the energy field began to collapse. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and everyone panicked. Erilyn froze for a split second. The engineers ran for cover. Guards shouted orders, but the containment field was breaking apart, ready to explode. Then Elias moved. Without thinking, he dashed through the crowd and climbed onto the platform near the unstable reactor. His armor burned from the heat, but he didn't stop. He grabbed a broken conduit and connected it manually, stabilizing the field. Sparks flew across his arms, but the energy core settled. The explosion never came. The hangar fell silent. The princess stared, stunned. This quiet human who never raised his voice had just saved her life. When he climbed down, his uniform was scorched, his hands shaking slightly. He bowed low before her. "I apologize for alarming you, Your Highness," he said quietly. Erilyn stepped closer. For once, her proud tone vanished. "You saved me," she said softly. "It was my duty," he replied, looking down. She wanted to say more, but her words caught in her throat. She turned sharply and walked away, though her heart felt strange, like something heavy was melting inside it. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept seeing the image of Elias climbing toward the reactor, fearless yet calm. She had seen many soldiers boast about bravery, but he had acted without words, without pride. He didn't even expect praise. In the quiet of her chamber, she whispered to herself, "Why would someone so small risk so much?" Her reflection in the mirror seemed to ask her the same question. The next morning, she ordered her assistant, "Bring me reports on this human guard, Elias Rowe." When the file arrived, she read about him. Born on Earth, orphaned at a young age, trained as a security officer, never promoted because he avoided politics. His record was flawless. His description at the end read, "Calm, reserved, loyal, prefers peace to conflict." Erilyn closed the file slowly. "Prefers peace," she murmured. It sounded almost poetic. Later that day, she found herself talking to him again. "Tell me," she said suddenly while walking down the hall, "why did you risk your life yesterday?" He paused. "Because you were in danger, Your Highness." "That's your duty," she said. "But you could have died." Elias looked at her with those calm blue eyes. "If a life can protect another, it's worth the risk." The words echoed in her mind long after he left. That evening, Erilyn stood on her balcony, looking at the stars. She realized she had stopped thinking about herself and started thinking about a quiet human who stood guard outside her door every day without complaint. She didn't know why, but for the first time in her proud life, she wanted to understand a human. Days passed in the shining palace of Zelaria, but something had changed within Princess Erilyn Velar. She still wore her golden crown and spoke with authority, but her thoughts were no longer the same. The proud confidence that once made her seem untouchable now carried a small, quiet uncertainty. It all began with one human guard, the one who saved her life without hesitation or pride. Every morning she passed Elias Rowe standing near her chamber door. His posture was always straight, his gaze calm, his uniform neat. He never spoke unless spoken to. But his silence no longer annoyed her. Instead, it made her curious. Sometimes she would walk slower just to glance at him longer. He would bow politely and she would turn away quickly, pretending she wasn't interested. One day, while walking through the palace gardens, Erilyn spoke without looking at him. "Human," she said softly, "you risked your life before. Do you always act without fear?" Elias answered quietly, "I don't think bravery means having no fear, Your Highness. It means doing what must be done even when afraid." His words were simple, but they stayed with her like a melody. That afternoon, the princess joined her advisors in the royal court. They discussed trade, politics, and the growing contact with Earth. Some nobles complained that humans were being given too much trust. "The Emperor believes in peace," one noble said with a frown. "But can peace exist with such fragile beings?" Another added, "Humans act polite, but their kind is unpredictable. They don't belong inside the palace." Erilyn sat quietly, her golden eyes sharp. For years she had agreed with such talk. But now, hearing them insult humans, especially Elias, felt wrong. She finally spoke. "Perhaps you mistake humility for weakness," she said. "I have seen strength among them, quiet strength." The nobles fell silent in surprise. One of them dared to ask, "Your Highness, are you saying humans are our equals?" Erilyn's lips curved slightly. "No, but perhaps they are not as far beneath us as we think." Whispers filled the hall. The princess who once mocked humans was now defending them. None could understand why. That evening, Erilyn went to the balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns were setting. painting the clouds in gold and violet. Elias stood at his post behind her as usual, silent and still. She turned toward him suddenly. "Tell me about your world," she said. Elias looked surprised. "Earth, Your Highness?" "Yes, I've seen reports, but I wish to hear from someone who lived there." He nodded slowly. "It's smaller than Xyleria. The skies are blue, the rain smells clean. The cities are not made of crystal like yours. But the people," he paused, searching for words, "they're full of hope. Even when they have nothing, they dream. That's what keeps them alive." Erilyn listened quietly. "Dreams?" she repeated as if the word felt strange on her tongue. "Yes," Elias said. "Humans dream not of power but of meaning. We wish to become better than we were yesterday." For a moment the princess said nothing. Then she asked, "Do you think Villari do not dream?" Elias hesitated. "Perhaps you dream differently, Your Highness. Your people already have everything. Sometimes when one has everything, it's harder to know what to dream of next." She looked at him with surprise. No one in the palace had ever dared to speak such words to her, not even her father. And yet Elias said them without insult, without fear, just honesty. That night, Erilyn found herself looking out at the stars longer than usual. She wondered what humans saw when they looked up at the same stars from their small blue planet. A few days later, a royal festival was held in the palace. It was a grand event, full of alien nobles from across the empire. Musicians played, dancers floated on anti-gravity stages, and laughter echoed through the halls. Erilyn wore a silver gown and a glowing crown that shimmered like the stars. She walked among her guests, smiling gracefully, but her mind wasn't on them. It was on the quiet guard who stood at the edge of the room, watching from the shadows. She noticed how out of place he looked among the shining aliens. His armor was plain, his posture humble, yet when his eyes met hers for a moment, she felt a strange sense of safety, something she had never felt among her own kind. As she walked past a group of nobles, she overheard their whispers. "Is that the human who saved her life?" "Yes. Some say she thanks him in private. She must be embarrassed, a princess needing rescue from such a creature." Their words made her face flush, but not from shame, from anger. Erilyn turned sharply toward them. "You forget yourselves," she said coldly. "If any of you had shown half the courage that man did, perhaps the empire would need fewer guards." The nobles bowed in silence, ashamed. When the event ended, Elias approached her quietly. "Your Highness," he said softly, "you didn't need to defend me." She looked at him, her voice steady. "Perhaps not, but I wanted to." For the first time she saw a small smile touch his lips, gentle, shy, and real. It was gone a second later, but it stayed in her memory. The next morning, Erilyn decided to visit the palace gardens again. The air was fresh and the flowers shimmered with soft bioluminescence. Elias followed silently as she walked among the glowing trees. She stopped near a fountain and said quietly, "Elias, do humans ever feel lonely?" He looked thoughtful. "Yes, Your Highness, often, but we learn to live with it. Sometimes loneliness teaches us what truly matters." She nodded slowly. "Strange. I am surrounded by people every day, yet I feel the same." For a long moment neither spoke. The sound of water filled the silence between them. Then Erilyn asked, "Do you miss your world?" Elias's eyes softened. "Every day, but I serve where I am needed." "You miss your people, yet you serve mine," she said. He nodded. "Because peace is built one act at a time, even small ones." She turned toward him fully then, her voice softer. "You speak as if you are more philosopher than soldier." He smiled faintly. "Maybe humans must be both to survive in a galaxy like this." Her heart felt strangely light hearing that. She had spent her life among warriors, strategists, and rulers, but never met someone who could speak of peace with such quiet strength. That evening she returned to her chamber and sat by the window. Below her, Elias stood guard as always, but now when she looked at him, she no longer saw a servant. She saw something else, something rare. Her attendant entered the room and noticed her expression. "Princess," she said softly, "you look thoughtful." Erilyn replied, "I am. Tell me, have you ever met someone who changes how you see everything?" The attendant smiled knowingly. "Perhaps I have, Your Highness." Erilyn turned back to the window, watching the stars again. She thought of Elias's calm voice, His words about dreams and courage, his quiet loyalty. She didn't understand what she was feeling, but she knew her heart was no longer the same. Late that night, a small storm of energy passed over the palace, a sign of distant space turbulence. Thunder echoed through the crystal towers. The princess couldn't sleep. She stepped out onto her balcony, the cold wind brushing her hair. Below, she saw Elias still standing guard in the rain-like plasma light, his armor shining faintly. He didn't move, didn't seek shelter, just stood there steady as stone. For the first time, the arrogant princess whispered words she had never said before in her life. "Perhaps strength is not in power," she murmured, "but in peace." And in that moment, watching the shy human guard below, she realized that something in her heart had begun to awaken, something stronger than pride, deeper than fear. She didn't yet call it love, but one day soon everyone in the galaxy would. The calm of the palace did not last long. Rumors began to swirl like sparks in the crystal halls. Some of the Valari nobles were growing restless. They whispered among themselves that humans, no matter how loyal, could never be trusted. And among them, one thought grew louder than all others. Elias Rowe, the quiet human guard, had no right to be close to Princess Erilyn. At first, the nobles spoke softly, as if their words might be overheard. "A human guard? He has already saved her life," one muttered. "If she grows fond of him, the Empire's pride will crumble." Another added, "Perhaps the princess does not yet understand that humans are weak. Their kind has never ruled, never led. They are expendable." These words, though spoken quietly, traveled quickly. The more the nobles plotted, the more dangerous the palace became for Elias. Meanwhile, Princess Erilyn continued to observe him. She watched as he moved silently through the halls, always attentive, always careful. She remembered the way he had saved her from the reactor and the quiet courage in his eyes. And the more she watched him, the more her heart refused to remain indifferent. One afternoon, while walking through the private gardens, Erilyn noticed Elias alone, polishing the palace weapons with meticulous care. His armor bore small scratches from recent exercises, but he worked with patience and focus. "You work too hard," she said softly. Elias looked up, startled. "I ensure the princess is safe, Your Highness." "That is my duty." Erilyn tilted her head. "Do you ever tire?" He shook his head slowly. "Duty is not tiring when it protects what is valuable." Her heart quickened. She realized that she had begun to admire more than his courage. She admired his character, his steadfastness, his quiet integrity. And though she would never admit it to anyone, she felt something more, something dangerous for a princess of her station. The nobles grew bolder. One of them, Lord Valen, devised a plan to remove Elias from the palace. He knew that accusing him of a crime he did not commit could ruin him and perhaps shake the princess's newfound trust in humans. Late one evening, while the princess dined alone, Valen's spies spread rumors that a sacred gem from the royal vault had been stolen. When Erilyn heard the news, her eyes widened in disbelief. Elias had been stationed near the vault that day. Could it be possible that he had stolen it? No, she knew the truth in her heart. Elias would never betray anyone. But when the royal council summoned him, Elias did not protest. He bowed quietly before the emperor. "I am guilty if it protects the empire, Your Majesty," he said simply. Erilyn's heart pounded. "No!" She wanted to scream, but she remained seated, silent, watching as the man who had captured her admiration faced the wrath of the court. The council was harsh. "If proven guilty, this human will be expelled or worse," the emperor declared. The nobles whispered among themselves, pleased at the apparent humiliation of a human, but Erilyn refused to stay silent. "Your Majesty," she said, standing for the first time before the full council, "I believe this human is innocent. He does not lie, he does not steal, and he has saved this palace from disaster more than once. You will not punish him for the crime of loyalty." Gasps filled the hall. No princess had ever spoken this way before. Lord Valen's eyes narrowed. "Princess, you risk offending the council. Are you suggesting the human is above judgment?" Erilyn's golden eyes blazed. "I am saying the truth. He is a human, yes, but his character proves his worth. If you cannot see it, then your eyes are blind to courage and honor." The room fell silent. Even the emperor watched carefully, intrigued by the fire in his daughter's voice. Determined to prove Elias's innocence, Erilyn decided to investigate herself. That night she slipped from her chambers, moving quietly through the palace. Elias, unaware of her presence, was performing his routine patrol. "Princess?" he whispered, stepping back in surprise when she appeared. "I trust you," she said, voice low. "Tell me the truth, were you near the vault today?" "Yes, Your Highness," he admitted. "But I did not touch the gem. I only checked for threats and ensured no one harmed the palace." Erlen nodded. "Then someone is trying to frame you." Elias bowed slightly. "I suspected as much. But I did not wish to cause trouble for you, Princess." She looked at him closely. He was calm, even in the face of false accusation. And that calmness, that strength, made her heart swell. She realized that she had come to care for him in a way that she had never cared for anyone, not even for her own advisors or nobles. Together, they began their investigation. Moving through hidden passages and observation halls, they searched for clues. Erlen's sharp mind, paired with Elias's human intuition, uncovered evidence that the vault's security had been tampered with. Small fingerprints of alien origin were left on the control panels, proof that the nobles themselves had orchestrated the theft. The truth was undeniable. But presenting it in court would be dangerous. The nobles who had plotted against Elias would resist, and some might even act violently. Erlen made a decision. "We must expose them, Elias. You cannot take the blame for what they did." Elias looked at her, calm and steady as always. "If you stand by me, Your Highness, then I trust your judgment." Her heart beat faster. "Then let us act together." The next morning, Erlen called the council into the main hall. The nobles who had plotted the theft were confident, thinking they had silenced the princess. But Erlen stepped forward, holding the evidence in her hands. "These fingerprints belong to those who tampered with the vault," she announced. "The human guard, Elias Rowe, is innocent, and I will not allow him to be punished for your schemes." Shock rippled through the hall. The nobles' faces turned pale. The emperor raised an eyebrow, intrigued by his daughter's courage. One noble dared to speak. "Princess, are you certain?" "I am certain," Erlen replied. "And if anyone questions my word, look at the evidence before your eyes." The council members examined the records, the fingerprints, and the control logs. There was no denying the truth. The nobles who had plotted against Elias were exposed, humiliated and angered. Elias stood silently beside Erlen, his calm presence a quiet contrast to the chaos around them. After the council meeting, Erlen returned to the gardens. Elias followed as always. "You could have defended yourself," she said softly. "I could have," Elias admitted. "But I knew you would act, Princess. And I trusted you to do what is right." Her heart swelled at his words. No human had ever trusted her like this, not her advisors, not her father. And now she realized she trusted him in return. "Elias," she whispered, I never imagined a human could make me feel this way." He looked at her, understanding her meaning without judgment. "I only do what is right," he said quietly. Erlen smiled faintly. "No, it is more than that. You show me strength I never knew existed. You make me see the world differently." For the first time, the princess allowed herself to feel something more than pride or curiosity. She allowed herself to care for someone outside her own species. And that feeling was terrifying and wonderful all at once. That evening, as the twin suns set over the crystal towers, Erlen watched Elias standing guard from her balcony. She thought of the courage he had shown, the calm he carried, and the quiet wisdom in his words. She realized that this human, this quiet, unassuming human, had changed her perception of life, of loyalty, and of love. She whispered to herself, "Perhaps the heart of a human is stronger than the might of any empire." And somewhere deep within the palace, whispers of rebellion still lingered. The nobles who had failed were not defeated. They only waited. And soon the princess would face a choice that could change the fate of the entire empire. But for now she simply watched Elias, her heart swelling with admiration and something far more dangerous: hope. The palace of Xylaria had never felt more tense. Though the nobles who had plotted against Elias were exposed, their resentment did not vanish. Their whispers had grown louder, filled with threats and scheming. Some even spoke of an ancient weapon hidden within the palace, a device powerful enough to eliminate any unworthy presence. Princess Erlen stood in her chambers, her golden crown glowing softly under the palace lights. Elias Rowe, ever quiet, stood at attention near her door. He had not asked to be thanked for the risks he had taken, but Erlen could not help herself. Elias, she said quietly, you have changed my world. He bowed his head slightly. I only do my duty, Your Highness. Her eyes softened. Duty, perhaps, but your courage is more than duty. It is your choice, your heart, and that heart, I trust it. Elias's calm gaze met hers. He did not speak, but she understood him perfectly. In that silent exchange, the walls she had built around her pride began to crumble. The very next day, the Emperor summoned them both. The royal hall, larger than any building on earth, glimmered with crystal and light. Nobles and advisors filled the room, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and doubt. Princess Aerolin, the Emperor began, his deep voice resonating through the hall. It has come to my attention that you acted against the council in defense of a human guard. Explain yourself. Aerolin stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. Father Elias is innocent. He did not steal the gem. The nobles who plotted against him are guilty. I acted to protect the truth, not just him, but the Empire. The Emperor's golden eyes softened as he studied his daughter. For years he had raised her to be proud, fearless, and commanding, but he now saw something new: humility, wisdom, and the courage to act according to her heart, even against tradition. One of the nobles, Lord Valen, spoke up angrily. Your Majesty, Princess Aerolin's actions insult the council and allow humans to stand too close to your daughter. She is elevating a being that is not our equal. The Emperor's gaze turned cold. Do you think loyalty, courage, and truth have no value because one is human? The hall fell silent. Aerolin's words had not been enough to stop the nobles, but her father's intervention created a pause. Princess, he said quietly, why did you defend this human? Aerolin's eyes met Elias's. Because he is worth more than all your crowns, she said firmly. The hall gasped. Not one expected such honesty. The Emperor studied her, seeing a fire in her golden eyes that he had never seen before. But not everyone welcomed this. Hidden in the shadows of the palace, disgruntled nobles prepared to act. They activated the palace's ancient defense system, a series of energy barriers and automated drones designed to protect the palace, but also capable of harming anyone deemed a threat. Alarms rang through the crystal halls. Guards scrambled to their posts. Sparks of energy lit the corridors as drones hovered, scanning for intruders. Among the chaos, Elias remained calm. Stay behind me, Your Highness, he said quietly. Aerolin's heart raced. Elias, you do not need to risk yourself. He shook his head. If your life is in danger, it is my duty to act. The princess watched as Elias moved with precision and grace, guiding the palace guards, deactivating drones, and protecting the staff and civilians. Though shy and quiet, his mind was sharp, his instincts flawless. The nobles who had plotted against him tried to interfere, but Elias anticipated their moves. One by one, he disabled the security drones and neutralized their attempts without harming a single person. His bravery and calmness stunned the Volari soldiers, who had never seen a human act with such skill and control. The Emperor observed from above, hidden behind an energy shield. He realized something profound. This human, this quiet, humble human, was not weak. He possessed a courage, intelligence, and loyalty that many Volari had never demonstrated. The princess, watching Elias in action, felt a mixture of pride and awe. She had once thought the galaxy's greatest strength lay in power, wealth, and advanced technology. Now she understood it could also reside in the quiet heart of a human who chose to act rightly, even when danger was near. When the last of the drones fell inactive, the palace was silent again, the threat neutralized. Guards and nobles looked at Elias with newfound respect. He remained composed, bowing slightly before the princess. You saved everyone, she whispered, stepping toward him. He shook his head. I only did what was necessary. Her chest tightened. No, it was more than that. The Emperor descended to the main hall. His voice resonated with authority. Elias Rowe, he said, you have demonstrated courage, loyalty, and wisdom beyond your station. The Empire owes you gratitude. Elias bowed. Thank you, Your Majesty. I only serve where I am needed. The Emperor turned to Aerolin. And you, my daughter, have shown judgment and courage in recognizing truth and standing by it. You have learned something that cannot be taught in halls of study or courts of law. Character is worth more than birthright. Aerolin's eyes shimmered with pride and relief. She glanced at Elias. For the first time, the distance between princess and guard felt small, almost invisible. Even so, the palace was not yet completely safe. Rumors and whispers of rebellion continued to echo in hidden corners. But Elias's actions and the princess's courage had shifted the balance. Nobles who had intended harm now hesitated, unsure if they could challenge someone so capable and loyal. Erlen approached Elias privately in the palace gardens later that evening. The sky glowed with the twin suns setting, painting the crystal towers in soft gold and violet. "You were incredible today," she said softly. I don't think I have ever admired anyone like this before." Elias looked down, modest as ever. "I only did what was right." "But it was more than right," she insisted. "You protected me, the staff, and the Empire, and you did it calmly without fear or pride. That is rare." For a moment he said nothing. Then he looked at her, his quiet blue eyes steady. "I serve because I choose to, and because I trust you, Princess, to see the truth." Her heart skipped. She had never met someone who trusted her so fully without hesitation or doubt, and now she realized she wanted to trust him in return. Not just as a human, but as someone who had touched her heart. The night air was cool, and the gardens were silent except for the gentle hum of distant crystal fountains. Erlen and Elias stood together, silent companions in the midst of chaos. She realized that in all her life she had never felt more alive than in this quiet moment beside him. For the first time, the princess understood what true strength looked like. Not the arrogance of birthright or the power of titles, but the courage to act rightly when no one was watching, the calm to face danger without fear, and the loyalty to stand by those who cannot protect themselves. She reached out slightly, almost touching his hand. "Elias," she whispered, "you have changed me." He bowed his head slightly. "It is not me, Princess. It is choice, yours, mine, and the courage to follow it." And in that quiet night, surrounded by the sparkling towers of Zelaria, something shifted. The arrogant princess and the shy human guard were no longer simply student and protector. They were allies, friends, and perhaps something more. But even as the palace settled into silence, the shadows of discontent lingered. The nobles who had failed would not forget. The empire itself was still a place of power and politics, and soon the true test of loyalty, courage, and love would come, not from accusations or schemes, but from the galaxy itself. For now, though, Princess Erlen allowed herself to smile softly, standing beside the human who had saved her life, and who had unknowingly captured her heart. The palace of Xylaria was alive with energy and anticipation. Word had spread throughout the empire that Princess Erlen had defended a human guard, Elias Rowe, from false accusations and danger. Many whispered that she had elevated a human above some Valari nobles, a notion unthinkable in the history of the empire. In the main hall, the emperor sat on his crystal throne observing the gathered nobles and soldiers. His golden eyes were sharp but calm. Beside him, Princess Erlen stood tall, her violet hair glowing softly, her heart beating faster than it had in weeks. Elias, quiet and composed, stood beside her as always. The nobles who had plotted against him had been summoned. Their faces were pale, their arrogance replaced by fear. They had underestimated both the princess and the human they had tried to disgrace. "Princess Erlen," the emperor began, his deep voice resonating through the hall. "You have acted with courage and wisdom. You have defended truth, protected loyalty, and shown judgment beyond your years. What say you of your human guard?" Erlen looked at Elias, then back at the emperor. Her voice was strong, yet her tone carried admiration. "He has shown courage, loyalty, and intelligence far beyond what anyone expected," she said. "He has risked his life for me, for the staff, and for this palace. He is more than worthy of respect." A stunned silence filled the room. Never had a princess spoken in such a way. Never had a human been praised by royalty in front of the entire council. The emperor nodded slowly. "And what say you, Elias Rowe?" Elias bowed. "I only serve where I am needed, Your Majesty. It is my duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I do not ask for praise or reward." "But you have earned both," the emperor said. "Your courage has not only saved a life, but it has inspired all who witnessed it. The empire recognizes your deeds. From this day forward, you will serve as an honored protector, not merely a guard, but a symbol of the alliance between Earth and Xylaria." Gasps echoed through the hall. Even the nobles who had plotted against him could not hide their shock. A human recognized as equal in honor to the empire's elite? It was unheard of. Erlen's eyes shone. She had always believed humans to be fragile and weak, but Elias had proven otherwise. And she realized, with a heart both proud and tender, that she had never admired anyone as she admired him. The nobles who had tried to harm Elias were then called forward. Their plots and false accusations were revealed, documented with proof from the investigation Erlen and Elias had conducted together. "Your schemes are dishonorable," the emperor declared. "They threaten not only the life of my daughter, but the stability of the empire. You are hereby stripped of your titles and exiled. The palace will no longer tolerate those who act against loyalty and truth." The council members could only bow silently. Their arrogance had been shattered, and the empire itself had witnessed a new order, a rule of justice, courage, and equality. Elias stood silently, watching the proceedings. He had not sought revenge or power. He had acted only to protect the princess and the palace. Yet his quiet bravery had reshaped the balance of power within the empire. That evening, the palace celebrated its newfound peace. Lights shimmered along the crystal towers, music floated through the gardens, and laughter echoed through the halls. But Erlen found a quiet moment alone in the palace gardens, Elias standing nearby. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "The empire, myself, everyone sees humans differently now because of you." Elias looked at her, calm as ever. "I only did what was right, princess. But I'm glad it has helped." She smiled faintly. "You are more than right, you are remarkable." His eyes met hers. For the first time he did not bow. Instead, he simply stood, letting the moment pass in quiet understanding. Erlen felt a flutter in her heart, a mixture of admiration, respect, and something deeper she could not yet name. In the days that followed, the empire adjusted to this new reality. Humans were no longer seen as weak or expendable. They were recognized as allies, capable of bravery, intelligence, and loyalty that rivaled even the most honored Valari soldiers. Elias continued his duties, quiet and humble, never seeking attention. Yet wherever he walked, soldiers, staff, and even nobles now bowed with respect. The shy human who had once been overlooked had become a symbol of courage and honor across the empire. Princess Erlen, too, found herself changed. The arrogant, cold princess had softened. Her confidence remained, but it was tempered with humility. She had learned to see beyond appearances, to value courage over status, and to admire a heart that acted rightly without seeking recognition. One afternoon, while walking together in the palace gardens, she spoke softly. "Elias," she said, I think you have taught me more than anyone else ever could. About courage, about loyalty, about life itself." Elias has always remained modest. "I only do what I must, princess. You have the courage to act and the wisdom to see the truth. It is as much your strength as mine." She smiled, feeling warmth she had never felt before. "Then, perhaps we are equals in a way." He looked at her, and for the first time a faint smile touched his lips. Perhaps. The empire soon held a formal ceremony to honor Elias. The emperor himself placed a medallion of bravery around his neck, a symbol that had never before been awarded to a human. Soldiers and nobles stood in awe. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Erlen watched from the front, her hand brushing lightly against Elias's arm. Her heart swelled with pride, admiration, and something more profound, an emotion she could no longer ignore. When asked later why she had defended him so fiercely, she replied simply, "Because he showed me what strength truly means. Not in power, not in wealth, but in courage, loyalty, and heart. And because he mattered to me," the galaxy whispered in astonishment. No one had ever seen a princess speak so openly about a human guard. And no one had ever seen humans elevated in such a way among alien royalty. In the quiet of the night, Princess Erlen and Elias stood together on her balcony, looking out at the twin suns setting over the crystal city. "You saved more than my life," she said softly. "You saved my world, my understanding of it, and my heart." Elias bowed slightly. "I only followed my duty, princess, but I am glad it brought hope and change." She stepped closer, her eyes shining. "And perhaps it brought something else too." He looked at her, calm, quiet, and steady. "Perhaps." And in that moment, the arrogant alien princess and the shy human guard stood side by side. Their hearts connected not by titles or birthright, but by courage, trust, and a quiet understanding that spanned species, culture, and worlds. The Empire had witnessed something it had never imagined, and the galaxy would never forget it. Princess Erilyn smiled at Elias, and for the first time she spoke words that carried her truth without hesitation. "You are my equal, Elias, and my heart belongs to you." Elias's eyes softened. "And mine to you, Princess." The stars above Zilaria shone brighter that night, as if celebrating the union of courage and heart. The galaxy, once skeptical of humans, now looked on with awe. For in the heart of the Valari Empire, a shy human had changed the fate of the princess, the Empire, and perhaps the future of all worlds. And in the end, what happened next, what everyone had feared, underestimated, or doubted, shocked the galaxy more than any weapon, any empire, or any law ever could. A human, quiet and humble, had captured the heart of a princess, and in doing so he had changed the stars forever.